All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mountain Zoom. We're glad to have you all this evening. We have a really special treat with us tonight. We have Heather and Reed Graham with us. Heather is the Wolfe County Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent, and Reed is the Breathitt County Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent. And they're married, and they have a nice little farm there in Wolfe County, correct?
Yes.
In Wolfe County, and they actually have a firewood selling business on the side. They're here to kind of give us an idea of on selling firewood and some of the things that they have learned over the years and working with timber and working with firewood producers and that sort of thing. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Heather and Reed. Thank you all very much.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for the warm introduction. I know we go way back, and just definitely appreciate the invitation to be here with you all tonight. I've appreciate you introducing us. I think about saying that some of that stuff, but I don't want you all to think that we just work for Extension. We'll be presenting a lot of things. Extension says about selling firewood and the business of firewood and statistics around that. But I've been in the firewood business almost my entire life. My dad, mom, they heated their home with firewood. They encouraged me, to start a business. This is a good thing. We, can cut way more than we can ever use. So started doing that in high school, and developed some good customers in our neighborhood. And so my FFA advisor there at Wolfe County High School, she encouraged me to develop a business plan, make this a real thing. And that's been 20 years ago now, but we did that. That led to my supervised agriculture experience through the FFA chapter there in Wolfe County. Was a firewood business. So I've lived it. Originally, we started selling through the LIHEAP program, and we had some local customers kind of paying us cash. When Heather and I met in college, shortly after that, we got to working with the state park in our area. Natural Bridge State Park is about 20 miles from our house. We've sold at Natural Bridge State Park. We've been their firewood vendor for 10 years now. And in 2020, we had a big break. One of our good friends in the firewood business too, he pretty much sent us the business of one of the busiest convenience stores in the area. So this year we're gonna sell about 100 cords of firewood, 10,000 firewood bundles or so, and it's just turned into a great opportunity for us, and I think it could for you too. So we're gonna go through some considerations for that. So why would you want a firewood business? Here's a few things to think about, but number one, in my opinion, is diversification. So whether you have another business, another income, if you have, a farming operation, for us, it's worked well from our farming side of things because it allows us to diversify our farming operation. We're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, as they say. Woodland management, that's been very important to Heather and I. I'll just read you this quote from Cornell University, but it says, and I believe every word of this, with best management practices, forests can deliver relatively inexpensive fuel, meaning firewood, year after year, between half and one full cord per year, while at the same time being improved to encourage the growth of high quality tree species, hold back the spread of invasive species, create optimal wildlife habitats, and decrease the likelihood of forest fires. So it gives you that. Exercise, I don't know if you all know a lot about what extension agents do, but we work office jobs. We do get out a lot. If you don't know that, you do now. Hope I'm not telling any big secrets on the other extension agents on here, but it gives us a great opportunity to exercise for Heather and I, and get paid for it. So it also provides a good supplemental income for our family. Next, I'll talk a little bit about the environmental benefits. I'm sure you've all seen this chart here, probably when you're in elementary school, but so the trees, they they take in carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. They convert it into new plant material through photosynthesis. So in our business, the trees are harvested to produce, logs, chips, pellets, whatever it is. For our business, it's logs. We cut those logs into firewood. So burning that firewood, it creates heat for your home or for your fire pit, and it releases stored energy. So the carbon dioxide is then released back into the atmosphere. So technically firewood is carbon neutral. Some good points also are the fact that not as much transportation costs go into firewood. Firewood businesses, there's people that cut firewood in every county in the state, I would definitely say. So the fuel to get that heat to your home is probably going to be a lot less than some of the other sources. That definitely makes not as much stress on infrastructure. We all know what the roads are like, so they don't need a whole lot more stress on them. But I was reading this, and I think it's very interesting, but firewood can be stored for years, if stored properly with little to no degradation or risk to the environment. Now, I've never heard of a firewood spill in the water stream or anything like that causing any big issues. So there's that, and it is a renewable energy source. So here's some of the economic benefits. Of course, put some of the top ones on there. We found this with the in-state extension, but you can kind of see why cordwood is one of the most reasonable ways to heat your home. Natural gas, of course, is probably the second, and natural gas prices have risen. So you've also got fuel. I know a lot of people in our area use that, electricity being the highest. But I think by looking at this, one of the most important takeaways is probably the fact that not just anybody can get in the business of producing electricity, producing, natural gas. Not many people own natural gas companies, but you could feasibly start a firewood business. And just by taking away a few pointers from Heather and I tonight, hopefully you'll be able to do that on your own. So I think another thing is with other heat sources, you're dependent on someone else. So with firewood, you could feasibly, you could cut your own firewood, or someone could take you on as a firewood vendor and not really depend on someone else to provide heat for their place.
We can talk about the.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
No.
Okay.
This.
Oh yeah, the prices, of course. Thanks, Heather. So the prices right now, a cord of firewood where we live is about $200. So for that $200, you could get about 29 million BTUs. So natural gas prices in our area, we're very familiar with what that is. So 29 million cubic feet of natural gas will cost you $342. So that'd be the same amount of BTUs as a white oak cord of firewood. It's almost save you about half on your home heat bill per month.
So something we've seen quite a bit of in our area is the consumer demand, and that demand is there for a firewood business. You all might be familiar in your areas, it's getting easier and safer for people to heat their homes with wood heat. We've seen the increase of outdoor wood burners being used, so that takes the fire risk out of the home and puts it outside. And people can also pipe that heat in so that it'll heat their hot water heater. So it's making it safer and easier, so you get that bit of consumer demand. Then, of course, buy local movements. I'm not sure what state everybody is in, but in Kentucky, we have kind of the Kentucky Proud push to buy local, whether that's vegetables or meat, but also the firewood. And of course, that firewood's really, that push for buy local stems from invasive species of insects, and those insects causing detrimental effects to our forests. The emerald ash borer is kind of the big one that we really remember kind of when we started the bundled business, probably 2 years in. That was a big deal for the state of Kentucky. Certain counties were quarantined, and there was issues about transporting across county lines. And then that's not so much an issue now, but now there's things about transporting out of the state. So there's that buy local movement that will help you start your own business if that's what you're interested in. And something that we've seen in our area, and I would venture to say probably in your areas as well, I'm guessing that we're all kind of in the mountainous areas, maybe close to state parks, national parks. We've seen an increase in tourism, and a lot of that has been spurred by COVID. People weren't going to the beaches or to the big cities to vacation. They were getting out to nature to vacation, which meant the cabin rental companies were seeing an increase. The natural parks or national parks, state parks, they were seeing an increase in people coming. What do you do when you camp? You need to have the fire so that you can roast your marshmallows and roast your hot dogs. So tourism has been a big push in our business, and we've really seen that grow in the last couple of years. And then we also have a lot of people in our area that are moving in here from other states, from urban areas, and they are wanting to live off the grid. So they need a heat source for their homes that they are not dependent upon another outside company.
So next, I mean, we're going to make this a little bit informal, Jeremy. Hope y'all don't mind, but I just, maybe y'all can unmute, type in the chat box. What are some things that you'll need if you're gonna start a firewood business? Heather and I don't have all the answers, but we've got a few on here. But I thought it'd be interesting just to have you all guess a few things and see if they make the list. Who wants to go first?
I'm going to try and look at the chat box here.
Do you all market different types of wood for indoor versus outdoor? Like, for example, pine or holly might be fine for an outdoor grill, but not fine for inside of a chimney.
That's a great question, Christy. We absolutely do. There's a good reason behind that. We never want to sell anyone green firewood if we can keep from it. We never want to sell anyone any pine because of for home heat for sure. If we cut pine, it's going to go into the outdoor market. So it's going to go in probably in somebody's campfire somewhere. Pine is fine for firewood. It starts easy, it burns good, it puts out a lot of heat really quick, it seasons quick. From a producer side of things, you can season pine in I would say a third of the time that you could oak. So yeah, definitely that's a good point on that.
And I would say most of our home heat customers, they will specifically request hardwoods, and some of them, we've got one or two that they want green wood because they keep it stacked. They prepare for cold winters, and they want the green. They don't need it already seasoned. We used to do that with our bundled wood. We would use mainly oak and hickory. And then regardless of what kind of business you get into with firewood, you need to be open to criticisms, and you need to be able to take those and have a good relationship with your customer base, whether that is someone heating their home or if that's a park manager or a convenience store manager. What we found out after a couple of years at Natural Bridge selling the bundles, the campground manager was having to field a lot of complaints from campers. This wood won't burn. This wood won't burn.
I can't get it started. That
was a kicker. They thought that they should be able to get this bundle of wood and just hold a match up to it, and they have a beautiful picturesque fire. That's not the case. So we had to change how we were doing our bundles, and that's why we've gone to pine being in those, ash, some of the lighter woods, things that are a lot easier to season, but also a lot easier for somebody to hold a match up to and get started. And we'll hit on a little bit more on that part of it here in a bit. And I've had a few more, and please feel free at any point if you have questions, just jump in.
For sure, that's perfect. Truck, that's a good one. Some way to road logs out of the woods, especially near road, for sure. You need wood. That's a
very good point, Laura. All right.
So here's what I think is the number one thing you'll need. If I can get the slide to advance.
Uh-oh, we're frozen.
It's customers, you all. You don't have any business without customers. So I just wanted to say that. And I know you definitely need all those other things. And Heather and I will go into a lot of detail about those. But not only do you need customers, you need some facilities. You'll need a place to work up some of this stuff. You'll need a business plan. Like I talked about early on, I developed one. If your goal of a firewood business is just to, take somebody a truckload of green wood and buy some pop on the way home, you may not need a business plan. But if you really want to do a business right, whether it be a firewood business or any other kind of business, you need a business plan. You need to talk about your objectives. You need to see what people are getting in your area. You need to talk about your profit potential. You'll need some labor. You may be able to do it all yourself, but you definitely need to count that in your business. You'll also need a source. So Heather and I, as we've grown through the years, our sources have changed. We use sources as, such as when we started, we used dead trees on our farm. We could about make it on, we were, probably started out doing about 40 to 50 cords a year. That we'd have that many trees die through, disease, drought, wind damage, things like that. As our business has grown, that is not enough for us anymore. Now we source firewood from we've sourced firewood from loggers. We went to loggers and cut the big ends that they've left. I can tell you now that's probably the toughest source we've had. Treetops from loggers, that has by far been the best. But we also do right now, most of our firewood that we do ourselves, it comes from a Fish and Wildlife Habitat Improvement Project. So we signed up for EQIP in our county. We got accepted for that. And if you're not familiar with that, I'm sure any of the extension agents on the call could definitely fill you in on what EQIP is and what the benefits can be. But our project was a wildlife habitat improvement on our
Timber
farm.
stand improvement.
And we did some timber stand improvements. So we found that we were improving our forests and they let us use the trees that we felled for our firewood business. So, and I think definitely as your business, if you start a firewood business, your source will probably evolve and you don't need to single out to one source only.
A few other things that you might find that you would need. Oh wait, sorry, I got ahead of myself.
You'll definitely need one thing you'll definitely need, and I've learned this, and I've been told this when I started. You'll need a strong back and a good work ethic.
Yeah.
So some other things, definitely you'll need a chainsaw. Somebody put that in the chat. If you're going to use a chainsaw, you need some personal protective equipment, PPE. That's one of the most important things that people forget about, don't think about. You need to be wearing a hard hat if you're cutting trees down.
And I'm going to interject here, regardless of any of this equipment here, pretty much, except for maybe the moisture meter, you need to have your PPE. If you're doing anything with firewood, have your eyes protected, have some sort of glove on, and something that we've just recently started using in the last couple of years. And this is even if you're using a splitter or a firewood processor or the chainsaw, have ear protection. It goes a long way in the day for not having a headache when you get done, if you're spending a lot of time working in wood. And I would say for sure to invest in a good pair. We started out with some cheapos, and after about 2 hours, your ears hurt, your head hurts. Go ahead and invest in the better pair. And that way you can listen to your music or you can listen to a good audiobook while you work. But not just with the chainsaw, with anything. Make sure you've got your PPE, because if you're not protected and you get hurt, you're not going to be able to have your business. You're not going to be able to make that extra income. So
you'll definitely need a way to split the round pieces into smaller pieces. You'll need a splitter, a maul, firewood processor. That's perfect. You'll need a can hook, a log roller. Heather and I use a can hook every day we work in firewood. That has been one of the most valuable pieces of equipment that we've had on firewood. You'll need a truck. Most people that burn firewood, they won't be able to come to your farm or your business and pick up. You'll probably need to deliver a lot of what you sell. Trailer, moisture meter. I put this on here. Heather and I didn't start out using a moisture meter, and I think that it's probably cost us some customers in the past, but they're relatively inexpensive. $20, $25. You can buy a cheap moisture meter and really know what moisture the firewood is that you're selling. I think it's probably a good time to talk about seasoned versus green firewood. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but technically, in my opinion, anything under 20% moisture is considered seasoned firewood. So on white oak, red oak, a denser type of wood, that could take a year. It could take more than a year if you're not seasoning in a good sunny location. If you're not getting firewood up off the ground, it's going to take some time, but you'll have no way of knowing that without a moisture meter. So some of these items can be very expensive. Well, you need a loan. Maybe so. That's when your lending institution, they'll ask you for a business plan. So it's probably definitely one of the most important things.
Some other things that you might need, we mentioned earlier that we sell bundled wood. Well, we have to have something to bundle that wood with. You can get pretty simple with that, or you can get pretty intricate with it. We have, there are bundlers that you can purchase, and to look at them, they're pretty simple, but they really increase your efficiency. So if that's the route you go, then you're also going to have your input cost there of your shrink wrap. If you decide to put some sort of handle on there, or if you want to put them in bags, sometimes at big chain stores, box stores, you'll see where they're in more of a bag instead of shrink wrap. So that would be another input cost. Fuel and oil, and depending on how big you grow your business, that will be a big input cost. You're keeping up your chainsaw, your splitter, your processor, your truck. That's another one. And something that we have added probably within the last 5 or 6 years to our business is a winch that hooks up to the tractor. It's a whole lot safer than using a log chain and hooking it to the back of your tractor and just trying to jerk a log up out of the hill. And with the winch, you're also able to reach a whole lot more trees than what you would if you were just using that log chain. It makes it a whole lot safer and a lot more efficient. And then on the truck, if you do the home heat side of things, and like Reed said, a lot of your customers are not going to have a way to come to you and haul their wood. You need to go to them. So you might consider getting a dump insert for your pickup truck, or maybe even finding an older dump truck to use. So there are a few different models, if you would, how you could sell your firewood. You could sell by the cord. You could do a roadside stand. You could sell by the bundle, the bag, the sack, the bucket, whatever you decide to use. Or like what we've done, we kind of do a combination of some of those. And we'll talk about each of those a little more in depth.
So selling by the cord, this is probably the most common way to sell firewood. And I see a lot of this out on, if you get on any, radio, trading post, trading show, Facebook, marketplace, people are selling by the cord, but they're selling in their own way. Most people are selling by the truckload. Mm-hmm. But a successful firewood business will have a set amount. So your truck may haul a third of a cord, a quarter cord, half cord, full cord, whatever it is. But you need to state that to your customers. You need to be honest. That will put you all on a level playing field. We'll be on the same playing field. Heather and I, we sell quarter cord, half cord, full cord when we sell by the cord. And so what is a cord? It's in the picture here, but it's 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall, 8 feet long. Firewood, the common measure for firewood is 16 inches. So 3 stacks, 16 inches wide, 4 feet tall, stacked, 8 feet long. It's a lot of firewood. It's 128 cubic feet. Like I told you earlier, it's 29 million BTUs. It's a lot of heat. It's heavy. If excuse me, if you had a green cord of white oak firewood, it weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 pounds. A green cord of ash still over 2 tons. So it's heavy. You're gonna need, a pretty heavy duty truck if you go to hauling even a half cord of firewood. It's gonna be probably 2,500 pounds or so.
Something I want to say real quick about selling the cord of wood. So if you decide to get into the firewood business and you want to do that kind of the honest way and say, I will sell you a cord of firewood, does that mean each time you need to stack out a cord of firewood and then load your truck up and haul it to that customer? No, it does not. What I think both of us would probably recommend to you is stack out a cord a couple times and load your truck up. Do that a couple times. That way you have a really good feel for how much your truck or your trucks can hold. We've had to do that if we get a new truck or change something up and how we're cutting or processing, what have you. We have a really good eye to know if we mound up in one truck to a certain point on the bed, we know if that's a half a cord. Most of our stuff, we can get a cord in 2
Yeah.
2 different trucks. So if we hauled together, we could take 2 individual truckloads to that person and we know, here's your cord of wood. So I would suggest that if that's the route you want to go, stack it out, throw it in your truck, stack it out, throw it in your truck, and really get a good feel for how much wood will hold in your truck.
That's one of the things that'll get you a bad name in firewood as quick as anything, is claiming you're delivering a certain amount of firewood and then it not actually being that. So good point,
Yes.
Chad. Definitely, it's easy to damage a truck by overloading it, and like I said, it is a really heavy product. So it's often less labor, but you've got a lot more potential customers in selling by the cord. So we can get this thing to advance.
Is it frozen again?
Yeah.
There we go.
So selling by the cord, your customer base, it's a lot more usually. People are heating. A lot of people are heating their homes with firewood. The farther north you go, probably the more people. You go north in the wintertime, you see why people are heating their homes with firewood. It's cold and it's the cheapest way to heat your home. Your restaurants, that's become a lot more popular in our area, maybe your all's, but restaurants aren't just heating the restaurant with firewood, but a lot of times they're cooking over firewood. These barbecue places, they're all using firewood to smoke briskets and meat on.
Just think about the Cracker Barrels of the world too, that it gives you more of a feeling or an aesthetics than it does. They're not heating with it, they're not cooking with it, but it creates a nice environment in a restaurant.
There's more restaurants in our area too that are incorporating a fire pit outside, so that they'll warm people up in the fall. And not only that, but just a little bit of smoke. It just seems like it brings people in. So tourism can be a lot of cabin rental companies, they will provide some firewood to you, and they'll buy by the cord off of a firewood vendor and take individual amounts to the cabins, kind of as a good service there. But for this version of marketing your firewood, you need a good source of firewood. So you need to have something reliable. It's a great way to sell your knots, your odd size, odd length pieces, other undesirable stuff. So just uglier looking firewood, stuff that you couldn't put into any other thing. But one thing to remember though is homeowners, they only want to buy in the fall and in the winter. So wood needs to be seasoned, for a long time, up to a year probably on a lot of these hardwood species. So people always ask Heather, when do you cut all your firewood? Well, there's not a week that goes by that we don't cut firewood, just to be prepared for for the next order that's going to come in. And that may be a year from now when we get that order, but you're going to need, a year round probably business there.
So that's going to put some planning on your part if that's the way you want to go. The roadside stand, this is one that we have not actually done because of that first bullet, location, location, location. We are not in a spot where that is feasible for us. We live at the end of a half-mile gravel road. Nobody's coming up here to look for firewood. And we don't want people coming up here to, just randomly come in when we're not around. It wouldn't be a good spot. This would be more if you happen to be in that touristy area. If you had a spot, maybe you had a deal worked out with another business owner where they don't want to man it, you want to man it, what have you. That they can get basic, like the one in the picture, or you can get real fancy. They make ones kind of like the old newspaper machines you see outside of Walmart or Kroger or something. You put your money in, the door opens, you get it out, and you go on your merry way. You can do the bundles or pre-made stacks. So the one in the picture is kind of the pre-made stack. It's not actually tied together or shrink wrapped together. You could also, in a roadside stand, you could sell multiple products in that one spot. You could do the firewood itself, you could do kindling, you could do barbecue bags. Because of the way they are designed, you're probably going to have to frequent those and get them restocked pretty often. There is quite a bit of profit potential there, and for high profit. Something you would need to look into is if there's retail regulations, if there's city or county ordinances, if you have to have some sort of business license, insurance or anything like that. Maybe some taxing issues could come into play. It could be hard to keep records for something like that. So, when it does come time for you to complete your tax forms, how are you going to track something like that? And then the big one really for us, another reason why we've never tried it is the honor system for payment. It's only as good as the people that come and visit that stand. So how much are you willing to trust your fellow man, I guess, would come into play there.
But there's plenty of people that do the roadside stands and been very successful in it. If you live in the right spot, that'd be a great option for you probably.
This would you adding value.
Oh yeah, adding value to your firewood operation. So here is, in my opinion, number one way of adding value to your firewood operation, selling by the bundle. So at this point, you are literally catering to convenience, because what you can put in a bundle and people could actually pick up isn't a lot of firewood in the grand scheme of things. Probably somewhere around 0.7 of a cubic foot. You know, if it's seasoned, it'll still weigh, most species will still weigh 20, 25 pounds. It's pretty heavy still. So multiple ways to bundle. Like Heather said earlier, you can bag the firewood. That's becoming a new thing. We know a person, they put their bundles in a bucket and tie you know, a little string around it. Most of the time, this is sold wholesale. A lot of people don't have a way of retailing bundles, but customers could include convenience stores, campgrounds, hardware stores, restaurants, pretty much any retail outlet now that you can find. They're selling bundled firewood. So,
and if you live in that touristy area, pretty much any business is probably going to be willing to sell bundles for you. The Red River Gorge area, which is where we are, it would be easier to probably to count the stores or businesses, I should say, that don't sell firewood than the ones that do.
But for the selling by the bundle, your firewood needs to look nice. It needs to be clean. It needs to be light. It needs to be something that people can easily handle, not get dirty. You know, I'll never forget one of our first trips to Natural Bridge State Park. We, you know, a Lexus vehicle, really nice vehicle, pulled in. They got 10 bundles of firewood, threw them everyone in the back seat, and I was just standing there like, what in the world? But it wasn't dirty. It was fine, and they were fine. So,
and that's something, if that's how you want to go, you need to have a really good way to season that wood out, because if you put it somewhere that it doesn't get a really good amount of airflow, it will get mold on it. So, you know, that just makes it look not great, and it's going to impact how well it burns. So if you want to do the bundle route, make sure you've got a good way to season that. And Chrissy put a comment in there. They do the honor system and it works well. So
yeah, that's right.
I'm glad you've got good people
makes
around
you
you,
feel
Chrissy.
good about your neighbors for
Yeah.
sure, and your clients. So selling by the bundle, definitely more profit potential than selling by the cord for sure. It's a great way to sell undesirable species of firewood. We kind of hit on this. We bundle a lot of pine, and it seasons quick. It's not very desirable for anything else. But if you're going, you know, most of the bundles that we sell to are going to a campfire somewhere. So it's perfect to burn outside. Definitely more labor than other systems, and it requires seasoned firewood and consistent length pieces, which is kind of hard.
Okay. I don't know. I think we might have touched on this just a smidge at the beginning. We, for years, all we used was a log splitter to do all of our firewood. In the fall of 2020, 2020, we went ahead and purchased a firewood processor. It got to the point our business had built up enough. The labor, I'm sure you all have heard or have experienced it yourself. Finding someone to work, especially do any sort of farm labor, is really hard to do. And we just weren't able to keep up with demand. We made that business decision that the firewood processor would be of a great help to us and really, really better our business as a whole. What we found with that is
there's a lot of waste.
There is a lot of waste. Your sawdust is collecting in whatever that one spot. If you don't move that processor around all the time, you've got a whole lot of sawdust coming out. And then in this picture that's on the left, I'm going to try and get fancy here, use a laser pointer. We'll see if it works. So this is the conveyor that comes off of the firewood processor. You can see the wood that's split here. Then all these little bitty pieces fall down here. And Reed decided, well, one, for the ease of cleaning up the barn that we're working in, we need to put this tote under here to catch all of it. And then just did some thinking like, man, this is a whole lot of sawdust. This is a whole lot of just little scraps. We need to figure out something to do with it. So we turned what would be considered waste or trash into more profit. We have taken the little pieces of scraps and we put those in burlap sacks. This just happens to be one that we took a picture of. So when we sell bundles, we also sell kindling bags. Each bag looks a little bit different because who knows what you're going to grab out of that tote. Some pieces might be a little bit longer. Some of it's maybe just small pieces of bark. So that helps alleviate people when they're, oh man, I'm having a hard time getting this started. Well, you can't just hold a match to a big piece of wood. You need to start small. So then we backed up even more to the very beginning of the process. And we started making these fire starters. They look a lot like pecan tartlets or a cupcake or something, but they're not. I've tried to sell them at the farmer's market and people get really excited. They come over and they think they're getting a sweet treat. I'm like, man, no, it's a fire starter. They still buy them. It's kind of a novelty item. It is probably the most simple thing you can do to add value to your firewood business. All I do is take old muffin tins, put cupcake liners in there, put my sawdust, and I do make sure we've built a box that we can put our sawdust in and make sure it gets good and dry. So dry it out, put the sawdust into the cupcake liner, cut a little piece of string for the wick, and then pour paraffin wax over it. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. I can do it at night. I can do it when it's raining outside, if I'm in the barn. And I meant to look at our numbers, but it really increased, both of those items really increased our profit margins this past year, just by taking something that we would otherwise be trying to figure out how to dispose of it. And we've now turned that into a sellable product.
Well, and the best part about it is we're already going to those locations with our firewood.
Mhm.
So this is all just added bonus, added bonus to us. And it lets us take our waste and actually use it. So I think there's a lot can be said for that.
Okay, so the last thing that we want to hit on, maybe if the slide will advance, is just a kind of a recap of what we've gone over. And it's in a little bit different order from one of the slides Reed had earlier. So if you're wanting to start your firewood business, or if you're wanting to expand it, your mind's probably been working while we've been talking, having some sort of business plan, and that does not need to be anything intricate. You don't have to go see a business analyst to do that. That can be something as simple as you sitting down at your kitchen table tonight saying, I have 10 acres of woodlands that I can go into. I have a gas station and a restaurant down the road from me. I'm going to go talk to them tomorrow and see if I can sell wood to them. And then I'm going to market on Facebook. I'm going to market in the local newspaper or on the local radio station. I would suggest that you look into making sure that you have yourself covered as far as insurance. You might even consider doing some sort of LLC to give you that extra layer of protection between you personally and your firewood business. And then of course the equipment and the labor and the wood. I did not put that on there.
You need some customers. Don't
Yep.
forget that.
There's our contact information. If y'all have any questions, I'll give you a second to write that down before we stop share. But if you have questions for us, feel free to chime in, unmute yourself, or send something in the chat box. How about chicken coop bedding or offer shavings to mushroom growers? We don't really have, where we are anyway, we don't have enough people that have more than like 5 hens for chickens. So for us, that's not feasible. Same with mushrooms. I don't know of anybody around us doing mushrooms. So that would require us, then we'd have an extra expense of having to transport it to wherever. But now for someone else in their location, that might be a really awesome way to take that waste and make some sort of profit. And I will say this, on the bedding side of things, if by chance you have someone around you that has horses and is looking at bedding, you've got to be very cautious of what type of wood you're using there. I know walnut, for one, is not good for horse hooves. It can really mess them up. So just keep that in the back of your mind if you're cutting wood and somebody has horses and they want it for their bedding. How are you making it? Does generate quite a bit. So that, well, I don't know if I can go back to that picture. The picture that we showed that had the tote with the kindling, we put one of those on the side of the processor as well to catch the shavings. That one picture I had of the shavings, that was the only one I had. But that was just in one spot. That's not how we typically do it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Christy. The reason we're generating so many shavings now, and we weren't before, when we were splitting firewood, when I first started splitting firewood with them all, you didn't have hardly any shavings. You're using a wedge to split the firewood. When you use a firewood splitter, the wedge splits the firewood apart. When you move into a firewood processor, the wedges then are cutting the firewood. So it takes, it puts a lot of resistance against firewood, and it kind of shaves a lot of that off.
I took shavings as more of the sawdust, but the processor on both cases is going to generate more. We do have one person that comes and he'll get a tote of the sawdust and use it for bedding in his barn, but he's already coming to get hay off of us. So we just load him up a tote of that. And that is something that we have started using probably within just the last 6-8 months, maybe a year, for the firewood are those totes.
IBC totes.
Yeah, we take if it's just for like the little scraps of woods that we put in the kindling, we take that plastic insert out and just let the wood collect in there. But we also, I just completely lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
We've had good demand though for seasoned firewood. I think that we'll continue to have good demand for seasoned firewood. And I think if any of you all started a firewood business, you'd see the same thing. There's a ton of folks out there that sell green firewood. They go out, they take their truck and their splitter and their saw, and they go to the woods. They cut the first thing they come to, then they take it and try to sell it to someone. And if you've ever burned firewood, you know how hard that is to do and how bad that is for your chimney. It takes so much effort for the firewood to get enough moisture out of it to actually burn that you've really not accomplished much. So keeping seasoned firewood, I think that's the key. That's always been the hardest struggle for us as a business where we work full time for someone else. Coming home, and splitting wood for a year in advance has always been tough, but we're working on that every year. It seems like we get, a little bit farther ahead. That's
where those totes can come in really handy. Instead of you having to split your wood, then take it somewhere and stack it so that it'll get airflow. Those totes, you can just get the wood in there. And then if you level it off, you can actually stack those one on top of another, kind of get it out of the way. You're not touching it again. And it gets enough airflow that it'll season out fairly quickly. And I think you figured out how many of those leveled off will come into a cord.
Four of those will make a cord just through in, it comes off of our processor. So we put it in there, and then we'll just move it around somewhere with a tractor, forklift, and never have to handle that firewood until we actually take it to a customer's place or we bundle it.
So Shad, that is now how we are storing the firewood. We're putting it in those totes instead of storing it in the barn. We found the barn, the one barn in particular that we were using, it just didn't get enough airflow. So we were getting the mold on there. And then we also found that if you just let hickory sit for really long enough for it to season out, you'll get a lot of bugs. And then they create a really fine sawdust and makes an even bigger mess in your barn.
But yeah, Christy, we take the plastic liner out for anything, but like we use the plastic liner still for sawdust or for those, for what I call like shaving the kindling. And then we usually keep one around just to throw stuff that that you couldn't use for anything and kind of dispose of that. We use the plastic totes in those, but 4 of the regular size totes, and we didn't know this going in. We've had the totes for probably a year and a half or 2 years, some of them, but they make 2 different sizes of totes. So the regular size, the 220, I believe it is, gallon tote, 4 of those, just however the firewood falls into those, will stack a full cord. So 4 by 4 by 8 firewood cut 16 inches long, 3 stacks wide. It will be 4 feet tall and 8 feet long.
And something I would say, if you decide you want to buy those totes, you can find them. A lot of people have them and will give them away, because if it's the paint business
Yeah.
that we found in Lexington, they just needed to get rid of them so we could get them for free. Some people, you have to pay a little bit for them. But one thing I would suggest is, before you agree to buy any or take any, ask them what the grid is on it, because we found that there are different sizes there, and there are some that it's a lot tighter, and you can't just easily reach in and pull a piece of wood out. You actually have to reach over the top. And I'm sorry, I keep disappearing, but you have to reach over the top, or you can send your kid in to hand it up to you. But if you get ones that are a bit bigger, you can reach in and your wood will come through that slot.
Absolutely, Christy. Folks who smoke meat, they want most of the ones around us, they want hickory or oak. And they, for seasoned firewood, they will pay a premium. There's no doubt. And there's barbecue places popping up at the corner of everywhere around here. I don't know if it's the same where you all live, but there's a really good potential there for someone in the firewood business. Just go and approach them and keep some seasoned firewood. I know that's what they're always looking for, and definitely, I think that's a great little business there. Just people for smoking meat. And a lot of smokers take shorter firewood, so you just need to talk to the folks that are doing it beforehand, before you cut it and let it season. Make sure that your firewood will meet their specs. You've been awful quiet, Jeremy.
Yeah. Does anybody else have other
Hey,
questions?
we're still here. We're listening. This is great stuff. I did find out one thing that was very interesting that you pointed out, and it makes plenty of sense, is knowing who your customer is. I could see that right off the bat, what you need to know. But what I thought was very intriguing was the campsites. You're going to have to you need to sell a different wood, so to speak, to a campsite than you would somebody who has a wood burning stove and has been doing it for 20 years, burning wood for 20 years or whatever. It needs to be for a campsite cord, instead of a cordwood, you're selling a bundle, so to speak. For a campsite, it definitely needs to be a different type of wood, something that instantly burns. And I hadn't even thought about that you need to pay, close attention to that. So great information there, definitely.
I'll tell you what makes the best firewood for campfires is poplar.
Mhm.
It seasons quickly. It's virtually useless once you get down so small. Loggers, there's no market for anything under about 10 inches in poplar, but that's perfect size for firewood. You split it 4-6 times, and it'll dry out in a couple months. It'll pop and crack when it burns. So it's light, it's easy to start, it seasons quickly. That is probably the best species of wood that we found for campfires, for sure. It's great for fire starters in your house, really.
And the light really comes into play when you're making a big load of bundles to haul somewhere. By the time you get about 200 so bundles in, you don't want to have to lift anything heavy. And then if you have to go and unload it that same day, you really don't want to have anything real heavy. So the pine and the poplar work really great for that.
We got another question here about
wood that is certified. I'm guessing, would that be? I'm not sure. I've seen where it says that it's kiln dried.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
not
seen
sure
that
about a
too.
certification. Rick, what
Sure.
state are you in? I'm wondering if that might be a state thing.
Oh,
Virginia.
Virginia. They probably, I'm not really familiar
I'm
with
not either.
what's going on there. In Kentucky, though, we could sell firewood within the state
Mhm.
without it being certified. But I'm pretty sure that you would have to have that heat treated, and most people that heat treat, they also have a kiln that's gonna dry that firewood too. So they're probably stamping that heat treat certification to move it across state lines, and maybe your state requires that to just move it within the state.
And the reason that would come into play, that goes back to the little bugs that infest our woodlands and are easily transported in wood products. So that's That's probably where that's coming from.
Yeah.
These
Well,
have been great questions.
Yeah, I hope we didn't bore you all. You could probably tell, but we eat, sleep, and breathe firewood. We do it every week, most every weekend. We're doing some firewood, and most evenings after work. So, but Heather put up our contact information. We, be glad to share any information we have. But it's just, it's a good business, but it's a tough business. Like I said before, you need a strong back and a good work ethic. It's not always easy. It's this time of year. It's muddy everywhere you go. It makes it extremely tough. But getting a good place makes a big difference, I'll say.
You had mentioned business plan as well, and I know that's a big part of it. That shows how valid you are, and that you're willing to go out there. You're wanting to start a business, and so because you have to put the effort. There's a lot of effort in a business plan. It's almost as much effort as going out there and cutting a cord of wood. Maybe a little bit more tedious. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I see another question come up there. What size truck do you all have now?
That's a great question. So when we started the LIHEAP program through the county here, it's a government program. I don't know if y'all are real familiar with it, but you may be, but they require 3/4 ton or larger truck. They know the firewood's going to be heavy, so I think they don't want any liability around you hauling firewood. So we've always hauled with 3/4 ton trucks. We've got 3 of those now that we deliver on. So 3/4 ton truck will easily haul a half cord, all the weight, half cord, which will be, on seasoned firewood, it's about a ton, a little over a ton sometimes, but it makes a pretty good load, but it's doable. You could haul a half cord in a 8-foot bed, and all our trucks have 8-foot beds. I should probably have said that. So if you put a half cord just through in 8-foot bed, it'll be leaped up pretty big. By the time you stack it a few times, you'll see it's a good load. But you could probably put a half cord in a 6-foot bed pickup, but it'd be heaped up big, or you may even have to stack that. I've never done that. I've had some folks come by and we've just measured out of totes and stuff and put in a smaller truck bed. But that's a good question. We use 3/4 ton trucks.
And I want to go back to the business plan thing real quick. If you have questions about developing a business plan, not to throw my fellow agents under the bus, but reach out to them. If they don't know exactly how to do it, they can find the resources. If you're in Kentucky, the Kentucky Center for Agriculture and Rural Development, and we work very closely with them in Extension, they can help you build up a business plan. So you don't have to do it on your own. There are resources and people out there that can help you. Just reach out to your agent to find those resources.
That's a good question, Rick. If you deliver wood to a customer, do you stack the wood for a customer? We do, but we never do it for free. Anything you do extra, it's a cost. So never stacked a cord for less than $40. There's a lot of pieces of firewood in a cord. It'll take you by yourself, probably take you an hour.
Now, if you do it on the LIHEAP program, that's that government program's low income housing energy assistance program. Heating.
Yeah. They require you to stack it. So
you don't get to charge extra there or anything. That is something that when that program starts up, the vendors meet, everyone agrees on this is the price we'll get for a cord of wood. And
that's seasoned, stacked, and delivered. But most cash paying customers, they want their firewood stacked too. I don't blame them. I would too. But if I were you and I was going to business, I would never stack it for free. And we get about $40 a cord to stack firewood.
Christy, that's the acronym. Let me do a quick Google search and see if I can get you.
I think that's in every county in Kentucky.
I was right. It's low income home energy assistance.
Well, sorry.
Look at that.
You were right once.
I know it's government funded because a few years ago, there was some stuff that was brought up when budgets were going through things. And anyway, I'm not going to get into politics, but I know that that was one that was on the chopping block for a little bit.
But they do supplemental heating for folks with electric,
Mhm.
propane, natural gas, coal, and firewood. So that there's a lot of customers in our counties, which we live in one of the poorest counties in the state, but
the
there's
nation.
probably even in the nation. And you all may too, for all I know. But there's a lot of customers there, and but like I said, they will require you to stack it, and it turns into a lot of work.
Christy, I think I might have, yeah, here we go. I think this is kind of the overall government website, but in Kentucky, it's usually the community action programs that are the ones that administer it. So maybe reach out to someone in your community. Maybe someone at your senior citizen center would be a good place to start. They probably deal with a lot of the same clientele that would be on the LIHEAP.
Now in our county, they'll have a required vendor meeting every fall. Usually it's in October, and then you'll sign a contract, set your price, do all that, and they'll start taking applications the 1st of November, and you'll start getting the customers pick you. You'll start getting those November, and it'll go through about the middle of December. You'll get a break through about the 1st week of January. It'll start back the crisis portion, which means the folks have to be within, I think, about 5 days of running out of heat. So as a vendor, you'll have 5 days from the time they sign up to deliver their cord of firewood, which it was tough for Heather and I. It always has been tough for us to do that and work a full-time job. But I mean, so it's a really good supplemental income for you. It could be full-time income.
And in Kentucky, and I would imagine it'd be the same in the other states, you can be a LIHEAP vendor in more than one county. So if you're close to a county line, you might see about going into the neighboring county and being a vendor there as well. But it can get real hectic, especially during that crisis period right after the holidays. If you're looking at taking 2 truckloads of wood to every customer, you've got a short turnaround time to get it to them from the time you get notice. And if you get very many customers and nobody to help you, it gets real hectic and real backbreaking. Any other questions? I'm glad you all are interacting with us. I was kind of worried that this would be so totally boring.
We told Shad that this is probably about a 30-minute presentation. So
I knew better than that. I've talked to you before.
I really appreciate you all. And this is one of the few topics at the extension. I worked for the extension service for almost 4 years. One of the few topics that I feel really comfortable talking about. No, Heather does too. This is what we've done. Done this for years. We talked to people about it for years too.
You might have to get a show and go on the road.
I'd be a show, all right.
Great information. Really, really good information. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Jeremy, what do we have next? Or Phil, what's our next one?
I think Thursday evening, we're doing a seed starting transplant for garden plants type deal. So, basically that's what's going on Thursday evening. But Heather and Reed, thank you all so much. We appreciate you taking time away and time away from firewood, because it sounds like y'all need to be chopping firewood. Splitting firewood right now. So thank you all for taking time away this evening and spending the last hour or so with us. We really appreciate it. Great information. Definitely we'll get this out. It's going to hit YouTube. It'll hit the government channel in Letcher County, which covers quite a few households. So this gives people a really good idea if they're on a borderline of starting a firewood business or not, or what have you, or any business. I think you've given some basic information that you could almost look at any business type deal here. But you give us some great information on firewood, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us. We've
thanks.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, you all.
Well, unless anybody has any other comments, Shad, Phil, do y'all have anything?
That's it. Good job.
All right. Great, great evening. And we look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. Everybody have a great evening.
You all too. Bye.
Bye.